starting soon. Yes, we are going to have an exciting panel now. The panel discussion is going to be on commitment to innovate towards ending tuberculosis. We are going to have an expert set of panelists. We are inviting one by one onto the dais. To moderate the session, may I request Dr. Nivedita Gupta. Dr. Nivedita Gupta, please come on the dais and moderate this session. We are also inviting the key dignitaries.
Dr. Bahl from the NITI Aayog.
Dr. Rajiv Bahl, Secretary DHR and DG-ICMR.
Dr. Roderico Ofrin from the WHO representative for India.
Dr. Dinesh Arora from the Asian Development Bank.
Dr. Trevor Mundel, President Global Health Gates Foundation.
And Mr. Madhav Joshi, the CEO of India Health Fund. I request all the dignitaries to please come on the dais, and over to you, Dr. Nivedita, for your moderation.
So this roundtable discussion focuses on commitment to innovate towards ending TB. TB remains a significant global health challenge requiring urgent, cost-effective and sustainable innovations in all spheres for effective prevention and control. Commitment and support of various partners and stakeholders across public and private sector would be pivotal to further the development of various innovations and ensure their bench-to-bedside translation. This would require prioritization of promising innovations, funding, hand-holding, and supporting the innovators. Before we start the discussion, I am honored to introduce our distinguished panel members, each playing a crucial role in global and national health innovation. We have Dr. Bahl, a member NITI Aayog, who's leading India's health, nutrition, and education initiatives. He played a key role in developing Ayushman Bharat PMJ, the Ayushman Arogya Mandir scheme and Poshan Abhiyan. He's a globally recognized medical scientist with numerous scientific publications, awards, and he was instrumental in coordinating and spearheading India's COVID-19 response. We have Dr. Rajiv Bahl, Secretary, Department of Health Research and Director General, Indian Council of Medical Research, who's an astute clinician and scientist with over 20 years of experience of research in maternal, newborn, child and adolescent health at WHO. And now with his tenure at ICMR for last 2.5 years, where he's serving as Secretary to Government of India and DG-ICMR, he has brought several transformative changes in medical and health research. I'm privileged to welcome Dr. Trevor Mundel, President Global Health at Gates Foundation, who leads efforts to develop high-impact interventions against infectious diseases like malaria, HIV, TB, and neglected tropical diseases. He also oversees key product development programs, including vaccine research, diagnostics, and disease modeling. We also have with us Dr. Roderico Ofrin, who's the WHO representative to India. He has over 2 decades of public health experience in the WHO SEER region. His expertise spans public health emergencies and strengthening healthcare systems across member countries. We have Dr. Madhav Joshi, who's the CEO of India Health Fund, a Tata Trust and Global Fund initiative, which focuses on combating various communicable diseases. He drives innovation in healthcare technologies to reduce preventable deaths and improve health outcomes. And last but not the least, we have Dr. Dinesh Arora, who's the Principal Health Specialist at Asian Development Bank, which is a public health expert with over 20 years of experience in South Asia, Middle East, and North Africa. With a background in medicine and public health economics, he specializes in implementing evidence-based strategies for health system transformation. So I would extend a very warm welcome to all the dignitaries and would like to ask the first question. My first question is focused for Dr. Dinesh Arora. So ADB is supporting innovations related to health system strengthening. How can ADB support innovations in TB? Over to you, Dr. Dinesh.
Well, thank you. I thought you introduced me the last. I would be the last one to speak, but thank you. I think let's be very pleasant to see so many people for a scientific session like this. I have been traveling across the world. This is what makes India so special, how we are dealing with the TB. And let's be very proud of the way the TB India has dealt with. And the latest definitely is the campaign which was started, where we are identifying cases. And I'm so happy to see, about 600,000 odd cases identified. But again, when we talk about innovations, I thought, why were we just going for symptomatic approach? What about the asymptomatic cases? Why we still did not think about big, like having all digital X-rays done in the field? With Aadhaar, with what potential we could do. Dr. Paul is sitting here, who actually was an architect of Ayushman Bharat. Why we could not leverage health financing and have digital X-rays across the field using self-help groups, using panchayats? I think this is where I believe is the right time for India to take that big leap. We have done very well. We actually could do much better than this. When the Prime Minister appealed for ending TB, I think this is the right time. And with global geopolitical crisis in public health, we hear that term that pressure propels progress, the 3 Ps. I think this is apt for TB. We have innovations. I came in the last and I was listening to the people who were saying that there are innovations. The reason is to take them to scale. And here where we are to support, we need to take those innovations to scale, whether it's in diagnosis. I think gone are the days when we should be banking on sputum microscopy. We all know it's 50% specific, 50% sensitive. So still we are using it. I don't think that is the way we will be able to end TB. Perhaps we need to move towards molecular genetical gene type or instruments plus digital X-rays. And of course, the new AI, Cuff AI and all those, the site TB does test, validated by WHO is an amazing example of innovation. Globally, regulation has followed innovation, and that should happen in TB sector. When innovation is coming, when they get regulated, let's take them to scale, and that's the message. Innovations, whether in diagnosis, whether in treatments. Now, Madhukar mentioned about vaccine. Still we are having 6 months treatment normally, and I think TB Alliance is talking about one-on-one approach. Can we move towards latent TB treatment for a week or a day, and can we move towards a treatment of TB for a month, which they are actually right now, the clinical trials are going on. Let's back those innovations, those evidence-based strategies, and move towards ending TB. Of course, vaccine, which is perhaps for me the most important thing, which are now showing glimpses. I think innovations are in space. The ecosystem supports this. It's just time for us to take bold decisions, think big, and nobody can beat India in implementation. Nikshay is one of the best examples of how a software, how public-private has been used. In fact, Indonesia has been learning from India how Nikshay has been being used. In fact, we need to move towards Nikshay 2.0 now of AI analysis, getting up the cases, predictive modeling, and moving towards this. I feel very upbeat, Nivedita, that this is the right time for India now to press the button, fly off, and end TB. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arora. I would put the next question to Dr. Madhav Joshi. How is India Health Fund supporting innovations in TB to quickly move from bench to bedside?
Thank you for the question. So, India Health Fund was set up by Tata Trusts in 2017 to support India's goal of eliminating infectious diseases and achieving these sustainable development goals. It's a catalytic fund which came out of Tata Trust's own experience in supporting programs as well as working with government. And the trust had identified that science and technology could provide the discontinuity that was needed by programs to really come closer to the elimination goals. The related hypothesis that Tata Trust had at the time was that market failure had prevented the financing for the development of meaningful science and technology-based innovation for infectious diseases, including TB, which is very different from what was happening with non-communicable diseases. The reasons are quite obvious. These were diseases of the poor, and there just wasn't enough return for the private sector to make the investments that were needed. So that's what led Tata Trust to conceive India Health Fund as a catalytic fund, which provides the patient capital and the financing that is needed but not available to de-risk development of promising science and technology-based innovation, addressing need gaps for TB and other infectious diseases. The funding also supports validation as well as the evidence that is needed to support large-scale adoption. Our focus is on primary care and solutions which really address vulnerable communities. And in addition to financial funding, India Health Fund works with a range of partners, many of whom are in this room and at this panel, to identify need gaps where solutions are needed and not available. We not just identify the solutions, but work with the developers to adapt them to make them fit for purpose. Provide the funding, but then also facilitate market access and the collaborations and follow-on funding that are needed to make these successful and scalable.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi. And with the number of innovations displayed, I think there's a lot of work for India Health Fund moving forward, and we would be happy to work with you on this. My next question is to Dr. Rajiv Bahl. Which are the topmost innovations supported by ICMR that have the potential to help the program?
Thanks, Nivedita. So, for me, when I look at TB, which I had said earlier, it's a very difficult enemy to beat because of its various difficulties in conquering various parts of TB. Dinesh talked about. One is, of course, the TB that is symptomatic. And we have a lot of innovations, lot of available diagnostics, available therapeutics for those. I will not talk about that. But for active case finding, I was always thinking about that we need to have a strategy. And we were able to finally get that strategy in this 100-day program because not only of the commitment of the government, but also having the tools to do that. For us to have active case finding, which means asymptomatic subclinical TB identified, you needed to have X-rays closer to home, which we were able to get because you saw upstairs the large number of handheld X-rays, portable X-rays, enabled by AI. Because having the X-ray there and not having a radiologist to read them is not useful. But enabled by AI tools to be able to read, and then the moment you find anybody with an abnormality, to be able to do a low-cost nucleic acid amplification test or NAT. And this was my dream, that we will be able to do this, all of this maybe in under $5 or under $3 or 200 rupees or 300 rupees. And we are reaching there. It is not only important for us to have the innovation, but also to have the innovation which is affordable to our system, affordable to our program. Because no matter what, the number of people we have, even if we have a budget of 1 lakh crores now for the health system, we still have 140 crore people. So it must be low cost. And for it to be low cost, it must be manufactured in India at least. And if it is developed and manufactured in India, then we are going to get to those low costs. The areas where I think we need to make more progress is vaccine. One. Second, we already saw that next generation sequencing, the challenge is low cost, NGS based molecular tests for differentiating TB from non-TB, mycobacteria. You also need drug resistance, but the cost is going to be our factor, but doesn't matter to me because 20 years ago, PCR was where next the sequencing is now. So I'm sure we will make strides in technology and move there. Another area we have seen is where we have a huge capacity is AI-based solutions. But we need those AI-based solutions to be targeted, comprehensive, which can be knit into the overall program, and to make those AI-based systems not in isolation, but also in a way that is fitting into the program. Plus, the whole issue of evaluating an AI-based intervention. Because all these digital health solutions, I mean, some of them are, you are okay, you are able to do it, do the evaluation, but many of them, we still are developing methods to be able to evaluate. So for me, the innovation will be driven by an evaluation system as well. And lastly, the next frontier, as I think was also mentioned earlier, is going to be latent TB. Because this is where we are going to get the cases of TB coming in all the time. First, we are getting the symptomatics, then the asymptomatics becoming symptomatic, and now the latent TB becoming, and then eventually preventing even latent TB. So how do we get the right diagnostic, even better than what we have today, and the best treatment approaches, which are not too long, too difficult, but are able to move forward. So that would be my future look into this. But already we have a lot of innovations that are ready for use in programs or are just at the cusp of being ready to be used by programs. And those are the ones we need to handhold and take forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure that under your able leadership, the TB program, the TB research program in India, though you have given a lot of thrust to it, and we hope to see more and bring in many solutions which can be integrated into the program. Thank you for your thoughts. I would now move to Dr. Trevor. And sir, the question for you is that as one of the largest funding agencies, you come across many innovative ideas. In your opinion, which are the most important innovations on the horizon?
Thank you. So a confession to make. I had to, after the walk around with Dr. Bahl and seeing all these innovations and speaking to some of the innovators, I've had to completely reformulate what I was going to tell you today. And this is particularly towards the Gates team as well. So I've always said, for instance, on the diagnostics, we want a detection test as a high ambition that would be both precise and would cost around $2. And it seems very clear to me that we actually need to expand our ambitions and think about a precise detection test at $1. And there was evidence in the innovators that that might be achievable. Very cost-effective handheld chest X-ray for a few $100s that might have no additional reagent kinds of costs that could be used for broad community screening. So I really think we need to go back to the drawing board and think about an even more expanded ambition, which is driven by this innovation ecosystem that has arisen here in India. And I did want to say that I think that the real key to that has been the validation network that ICMR, Dr. Bahl, have put in place. And I think that probably is responsible for why there was such enthusiastic participation today. But that validation network, which is allowing us to triage what is really working, what is not, and have confidence around the quality of what is coming out, I think has been absolutely pivotal. So diagnostics, I have great confidence, are taken care of. What about the other modalities that have been talked about over here? Dinesh was asking for a 1-month TB drug treatment, and then we'll come to the vaccines that Dr. Bahl referred to. Well, on the drug front, towards the end of this year, I'm hoping that we will launch the phase 2-3 program for the first regimen where we have a chance of getting to 4 to 6 weeks of treatment, oral treatment. And we'll use a trick, actually, against MTB because we know it has a pathobiology that doesn't lend itself to very short duration treatments. At the tail end, at the end of the 4 to 6 weeks, we'll give subjects a long-acting injectable which will cover them for 2 to 3 months to get a full course. And it's because of the evolution of these long-acting drugs which now become possible that we can see the oral treatment of 4 to 6 weeks as viable. But once again, the Indian ecosystem, I think, is going to be key to this. One of the troubling problems we have is rising bedaquiline resistance. We're seeing it in some countries now at over 10%. And bedaquiline class drugs are at the core of the new treatment regimens. We can't afford to lose them. I was meeting with some innovators in Bangalore a day ago, and I've realized what a vibrant community there is in India now around antimicrobial resistance. And one of the very good startups was telling me about a screening test they had, which was able to detect drugs that were not subject to the typical efflux pumps. So you could modify the drug, keep its activity against the target, but nullify the bacterium's ability to upregulate its efflux pumps. And that's exactly what the basis is for the major resistance to bedaquiline. So once again, I think the ecosystem in India is going to contribute to this next generation of very short treatments. What about vaccines? Probably my favorite intervention in public health, because they are so effective in the public health systems. You may know that we are supporting a large vaccine study of a vaccine called M72, which is the first TB vaccine that has had substantial phase 2 data supporting its efficacy. And that study has moved tremendously quickly outside of India at this point in time. But we are on the cusp of announcing not just a M72 vaccine here in India, but a second generation of that vaccine. And we look forward in the next, I hope, 6 to 12 months of launching that here, and certainly in a partnership with ICMR and some of the other institutions. We know how effective you are at executing studies, particularly in TB. And so we can look forward to going beyond the diagnostics, both the drug front, both the vaccines, but capturing the innovations that are emerging here in India is going to be critical to bringing those home. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trevor. And the short TB regimen that you spoke about is very exciting. And we also look forward to new vaccines being introduced in India and new treatment regimens being introduced. That's a very exciting area and perhaps underrepresented as of now in the summit. But I think that's a very, very important area that you addressed. I would now move on to Dr. Roderico Ofrin. So the question to you is that what have been the globally tried and tested innovative operational models for TB and the evidence of their success in other countries?
Thank you very much, Dr. Nivedita, and thank you very much for inviting me to this forum. It's very exciting. This is the second forum on innovations that DG-ICMR, Secretary DHR has hosted. And it's really exciting just to tell Dinesh that India has already taken off in that path of ending TB, but keeping it TB free. I think that's also another area where we need to keep our focus on. So if everyone has gone upstairs, I've revised my speaking notes into how to reframe it, how to reframe these innovations around that have been recognized as global good practice for India in terms of a system. As the previous panel was saying, an innovation that is a product is not of any worth if it is not accessible to people. How do we turn it into a strategic approach of delivering it to people? With the thought also that we have TB anywhere is TB everywhere. I think that's, if we're towards elimination, we have to think about this. So I'll do it in terms of domains and give the country that has done the best practice. For example, in Hungary, there's mandatory X-ray screening in the general population since 1990. Now they're down to 12.8 per lakh population for over 50 years. That we've heard is also is being done in Vietnam, as well as other countries. The technology is there. You have 8 digital x-rays that are up there, many of which are already HTA approved. So that's one good practice. Now, to focus screening of TB patients in specific settings. In Portugal, there was screening of TB and silicosis undertaken in occupational health programs among minors. So this is another area we have to think system now, versus a vertical elimination of the disease. I think this is where we can proceed. So it increased TB-related skills among occupational health professionals. TB literacy has improved among minors, quarry workers, and reinforced use of PPEs. So there is a lot of collateral benefit around looking at it in different sectors with one innovation. Sputum transport systems. There are so many drones up there, but maybe this one in Kyrgyzstan, it's a small country compared to India, but may have its implications for India. Sputum collection and transport activity was outsourced to a transportation company. Let that whole transport system be outsourced. And then the carrier agent was also made responsible to deliver the result. If the sample is delivered as fast, the result should come back as fast. So there are a multiplicity of methods. I know in Kerala they're using the postal system. In some places it's actually delivery service, and it's just training of the carriers of the sample for better handling. TB diagnosis with that practice at the primary healthcare level increased from 0 to 66%. So there is a lot of these very good impact. Ambulatory TB care. In the Russian Federation Medical Mobile Unit to provide treatment, schedule diagnostic examinations for treatment monitoring. TB incidence has decreased from 67 per 100,000 to 41 in 2012 in 1 year. Mortality decreased from 8.3 per 100,000 to 2.9. So making it accessible, making the whole service accessible. The same practice was done in Uzbekistan alongside rapid diagnosis. So it's really, we have to think now how all of these innovations come to system. Increase access to the TB care. In Belgium, there is a Belta TB Net project specific for those who don't have insurance, underprivileged. And the cure rate improved significantly with 67.2 for the cohorts over a 4-year period, and 84.4% for the cohorts 2005 to 2010. So that's a comparison of 2 4-year periods. I can go on and on, but I think one important thing discussed in the recent panel was around communities and private sector and health. In Indonesia, engaging major private tertiary care hospitals, laboratories, and universities and physicians to increase notification for NTP, to the NTP, National TB Program, accounting for the missing cases. In Thailand, all health staff are trained for TB and strengthening primary care for outreach in communities. Special program is done for migrants through their health card, the 30 baht scheme. So now I think we can leverage the your AB card and Ayushman Bharat for covering everybody. In Bangladesh, it's engaging communities in rural and hard-to-reach regions through village and health volunteers. So to the statement around leveraging panchayats, TB-free panchayats, I think that's already happening. So it's just arming with technologies. A few more, social contact tracing in Moldova through social contracting of NGOs to be able to have TB-specific services among those that are in contact with TB patients. Systematic contact tracing and inter-country collaboration for screening TB of migrants in Netherlands. I think India is big enough with a lot of migrant workers traveling seasonally, whether it's apple picking in Himachal or construction work in Mumbai. These are possible now for contact tracing and for reach for treatment because of the Ayushman Bharat. Last, maybe in different countries in Africa, Congo, Ethiopia, Kenya, South Africa, the engaged TB approach, collaboration between the national TB programs and the community in planning and supervision and monitoring and evaluation of the TB program. So it's in the hands of the community in terms of this. Maybe last is Indonesia in terms of the national health insurance, dedicated to achieving UHC as they have a national health insurance scheme. It's very much like Ayushman Bharat. I think they have learned a lot from India. UHC, TB services at the workplace. I know there is still a lot of stigma, but maybe this is high time that it can be started. TB prevention and screening in prisons. Service provision for persons with disabilities, so access. So many of these can now just be leveraged and really integrated into the system that India has, because it has every element, every component, every investment that's possible. And the national health insurance also covers TB services. Now, plus coverage if some social protection if you lose income, as many are daily wage earners. I think I'll end there. I think you have a second question I need to answer is what is WHO India's commitment? And I think the commitment is for us to really, we are very much committed to support any innovation of around TB prevention, control, and ending TB in India. Many of our teams through the government of India are working nationwide for this, and we chose even very difficult districts, aspirational blocks, so that end-to-end that support that we can provide for diagnostics and even support for treatment. Novel approaches for screening and diagnosing. I know we have worked a lot with ICMR for the establishment of the Health Technology Assessment Unit from 15 years ago, emulating and using lessons learned from other communicable diseases and bringing that to TB. But also, I think WHO, because there's so much to learn from India, we are a platform for India, for other countries to learn, not just south to south cooperation, but maybe south to north cooperation in all of this, because no other country has this end-to-end capability for idea generation, research, development, manufacturing to scale, and distribution. So I think I'll end there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Roderico, for that very detailed review of what other countries have done successfully. And I can correlate many of the models are there upstairs in terms of wearable mass, then community engagement strategy models. There are many upstairs, and I think we can leverage on many of them that are there. I would now move on to Professor Vinod K. Paul. And sir, my question to you is that as a visionary leader, in your opinion, in which domain innovations are needed the most for supporting the TB program?
I think a lot has been spoken about the priorities, and Dr. Bahl, Trevor, all of you have pointed out the areas. But if we need one thing, because you've asked a pointed question, I think we need the best tool, simplest, affordable, highly scalable, saturation level scalable tool for active case finding today. To pick up asymptomatic cases. We need them to treat, to save their lives, and to meet our aspiration of TB-free India, meet our aspiration of SDGs and so on. But equally importantly, once they have been identified, the chains of transmission will be broken. So if you want to make a big dent today, my wish list will be a tool which is, one flash, like a, photograph flash, and we know whether you are asymptomatic, or for that matter, it will pick up any with a symptomatic one, TB patient. I think that symbolizes the thrust of technology that we may like to pick up out of the ones that are available and put them on a rapid track of shall we say, validation and uptake. That would be my suggestion. It's more philosophical answer that I'm giving you, but that's what it is needed. So a tool which can do this job as people exit from our railway stations, as they exit from bus stands, as we go to the school, and as that line is coming, say, okay, done. Into SSG meetings, to people walking into Ayushman Arogya Mandirs, people who are walking into AIMS and medical colleges. That is the wish list, and I think that would make, it's a philosophical, but that would make the best dent. So you asked me a tough question, but I think that is the need today to make the big difference. As we move forward, Dr. Bahl very nicely articulated the other 3 or 4 areas, and he said, I need a vaccine. And Trevor is going to help us get the vaccine. WHO is going to help us get the vaccine. We all are going to test the vaccines in our country. Maybe multiple vaccines, all candidate vaccines that we can lay our hands on, including even using mRNA technology. I know there's something happening out there. So if you ask me, then how do I go for a more sustained effort beyond this mission mode effort that we now are mounting, for which such technology that I mentioned may be useful? I think vaccine, I endorse Dr. Bahl's second priority being the vaccine. I also endorse the third priority, more accurate, more simple diagnosis, not just RT-PCR route. Here we are also finding there are multiple other routes which will give us diagnosis. I also want to mention that bovine TB also has to be plugged into our discussion somewhere. Please keep that in mind, and so on. So diagnostics, so that we become accurate, we become simple, we become affordable, and we become very, very sustainable. So I endorse that idea. And last but not the least, latent TB. One day we should all be free of latent TB. That would be a dream. So these 4 sequences, the sequence of the 4 priorities that Dr. Bahl said are very important. I would like to come back at some stage on the AI tools, but maybe that's for the next cycle. Thank you. And the validation issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your overarching visionary ideas. I would quickly move on to the next round, wherein I would again like to invite Dr. Dinesh Arora to ask you, sir, that what is ADB's commitment to fund and support innovations in TB?
Well, thank you. I think resources are the least of an issue, right? You asked Dr. Joshi, are resources an issue? No. It's about bold implementation. Bold vision, I think what Dr. Paul mentioned, requires bold implementation. Dr. Joshi, I was listening to you. I think there will be naysayers, everyone talking about X-ray, but let's move towards that. Japan did this in 1970s, and when it was not at its pinnacle of economic growth. Let's not wait for a country to become middle income or a developed country to say that we should not have TB. And I don't need to visit to the other floor, because India is a cusp of innovations. During COVID was shown to 150 countries in that webinar when they showed interest what India did with the COVID implementation. First practice of adult age vaccination, so well achieved. And this was the same team which delivered from Ministry of Health or the ICMR and other combined NCDC. I think it's just bold implementation, ma'am. And we are here to support you. As at Asian Development Bank, we have come up with a 3 billion program for Asia Pacific to support TB, dengue, malaria. We call it as EXCITED, Ending Climate Vulnerable Infectious and Tropical Diseases. But I think funding is the least of an issue. The issue here is of embracing the innovations and implementing into them, planning them well, and then taking to the base. And I think that's where India will finally come out and show the way to the world. Because if India wins, the world wins. And if India doesn't win, we will not be able to do that. So I think it's a judicial resources use coupled with risk taking is what is required to move forward for India. But we're always here to support you in whatever way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arora. And I would put the same question to Dr. Madhav Joshi, that what is IHF's commitment to fund and support innovations in TB? And when I say fund here, it does not mean funding the program. It means funding the innovator at the grassroots level where perhaps people are not buying his idea. So at the concept stage, taking it to a proof of concept, maybe further. So what are your what is your commitment from IHF to support such innovations?
So India Health Fund is unique in that it is the only funder from the private sector in India which is dedicated to funding the development and validation of early stage innovations. TB has been about 60% of our investment so far. And we've taken big bets on diagnostics, on digital technologies, and on supply chain optimization solutions which are addressing challenges in TB. The approach we take is entirely focused on what you just said, identifying early stage solutions which have the potential but need handholding and support to really prove their potential. And we stay patient supporters, ably supported by many of our partners. In addition to what we are already doing on TB for India, our philosophy, the late Mr. Tata's philosophy was India for the world. So how do we leverage Indian innovation not just to solve problems we have, but how we can also leverage them to solve similar problems in other parts of the world, where the knowledge, the capability, as well as the financing may be more of a challenge than we have. So it's very much about also supporting scale outside India, and that's what our partners enable, and we've got great examples of how that's been done at scale. I'm also pleased to share that we and some of our partners are leading a funding call, which we will be announcing on World TB Day next week, focused on unmet and emerging challenges in TB, which include the issues that Dr. Bahl has raised on asymptomatic TB, subclinical TB, latent TB that Dr. Paul also mentioned. We're also looking at funding models for rapid screening of vulnerable communities in both urban and rural areas, using proven or underdevelopment solutions. We're looking at differentiating TB from other respiratory infections, which is now becoming a common challenge. Also looking at overlapping infections like silicosis among mining communities. And we're challenging ourselves as well as developers to be proactive in responding to rising temperatures, to build in greater heat resilience to not just existing technology solutions, but emerging solutions. And this is all going to be relatively early stage and make sure we stay the course so that developers who don't have the access or the resources don't get lost. And we're very pleased that we're able to bring cutting-edge solutions to people who need it the most, because for us, innovation is a means to an end and not an end in itself.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would like to ask the same question to Dr. Rajiv Bahl.
So in terms of how the Department of Health Research and the Indian Council of Medical Research is supporting and will continue to support the innovators in TB and in every other space in health is multifold. So we've tried to create a research and innovation ecosystem. As you all know, the Indian Council of Medical Research now provides research funding of about $300 million US or about 2,500 crores every year. This is money of the government of India that the government is investing in research. So we are a reasonable funder. We of course cannot say that we fund at the same level of, we don't have the same amount of resources as National Institutes of Health in the United States. But we make each of this rupee count is what is our approach. But then what we have created is not only research funding for academic and research institutions, but we have an approval to initiate a Section 8 company, which will be called MIDAC, Medical Innovations Development Acceleration Council. That will be supporting startups and industry also in terms of doing the research and taking things forward. Meanwhile, We also have launched two schemes, two efforts, one called Patent Mitra, which is the immediate IP protection, accessibility for patents, as well as filing of the patents totally free of cost to the innovators in academia, in research institutions, in startup companies. That if you want to assess your patentability of your innovation and put it into actually getting a patent and maintaining the patent, ICMR will support that, both technically and financially. Also, we intend to have technology transfer summits, technology transfer melas. We want to be the bridge between our industry partners and the innovators. And we'll bring them together and make sure that many of these technologies get transferred to the right industry. Because currently we see innovators are struggling to find the right industrial partner. But moving onwards, for innovators who have moved to the next level, where they have a prototype, where they have something that they have developed, and now they have to get a regulatory approval, we have launched another effort called MedTech Mitra, or friend of all these Patent Mitra, MedTech Mitra. We want the Indian Council of Medical Research and the Department of Health Research to be a friend of innovators. And we've done this under the guidance of Honorable Minister and NITI Aayog, that we partnered with the regulator. So ICMR and regulator together are supporting and will continue to support innovators to develop a regulatory strategy. What kind of evidence do you need for you to get the approval of the regulator in India? And then we will also support what is our raison d'etre or reason to be, is the preclinical and clinical evaluation of products, of innovations. Whether it is diagnostics, therapeutics, vaccines, or devices, we will support the ones that we feel are important for the country, to by even giving financial support for preclinical evaluation, animal trials, animal studies, safety and toxicity studies in animals, as well as phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials. And this whole process we have created, at least we will get advice definitely, and funding if it is something which is of importance to the country, of importance to the programs. Finally, even after a regulatory product, innovators often struggle to get it procured by either private sector or, more importantly, the government sector, like the National Health Mission. And there we have the Health Technology Assessment of India, HTA-IN, which again was launched and has been there now for about 8 years. Now it's a full attached office under the guidance of Dr. V.K. Paul and under his vision. We have created that HTA system to do cost effectiveness of these products vis-a-vis standard of care, and to give confidence to the procurer that this product is actually something which you can be assured that it is cost effective. And we believe that that kind of assurance to states and to different programs or to different ministries has been very important, and they have been able to then procure things very, very quickly. So this ecosystem, in the end, there is the scale up. That how do you then support these small innovations to scale and to manufacture at scale? There we are partnering with Department of Pharmaceuticals and their PRIP scheme, the DBT, BIRAC, the National Research Foundation, 1 lakh crore fund for private sector, etc., to make sure that many of these innovations that have been coming out through the ecosystem of DHR supported ecosystem are then taken to scale. So that is a little long answer, but I thought it would be useful for innovators to know about the entire system that we are trying to create, and is already there. Except the company, everything is functional and is working. So any of this support that is required, you can get. You don't need to even write to us. This is open. Patent Mitra, there is a portal through which you can simply apply. MedTech Mitra, there is a portal you can simply apply, and you will be responded to within a very short period of time. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Quickly moving to Dr. Trevor, we would like to know the commitment of Gates Foundation for funding and supporting innovations in TB.
So we committed to supporting the battle against TB globally. But we have to look at the realities of the moment, which is that there's an overall decrease of global health funding. And we have to think very carefully about where we allocate our resources. I mean, our approach historically has been that we will take innovation from wherever it comes. Let's just subset to the diagnostics area. And we were one of the early investors in trying to bring the first of the molecular diagnostics, the Cepheid Gene Expert, to an affordable price, which turned out to be a dead end. But I think that, looking at the reality, which is that after COVID, the ecosystem here in India changed so dramatically, and there has developed now this incredibly vibrant diagnostic community that is very much aligned with the global goals of producing both quality diagnostics, but also affordable diagnostics, that we've decided to shift in our support pattern and not be so diffuse, and really to focus down on what we can capture of that very vibrant community here in India in terms of support going forward. The other two important points about that, I referred already to the validation network. It's very difficult for us and our small team to go around and individually select who would be the winners and the losers in this game of who we support on diagnostics. So having an aggregator that can crowd in so many different types of ideas and proposals is tremendously helpful to us. And the other element is that because of the close connection with the government, the ability for anything that looks promising to be rapidly deployed at scale, so you might see what its actual impact is unparalleled. So we're very committed to supporting this huge, sea change in innovation that's occurring over here. And we don't have time to get into it, but I can see similar trends happening both in the drugs and the vaccines area. But let's stop with diagnostics today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trevor. And the final question of this panel is to Dr. Vinod Paul. Is NITI Aayog planning to establish an interdepartmental coordination mechanism for TB to facilitate the bench-to-bedside translation of various innovations?
Working with ICMR and working with partners, yes, indeed, there is room for NITI Aayog to be a connector, to be an enabler, and to be a place where stakeholders can come together, talk to each other, break silos. Yes, in that space, NITI would be in a position to play the role. I think all of us, irrespective of the sectors within the government and beyond, should be together in this final assault and the final climb that our nation expects us to mount to be able to achieve the goal of TB elimination. And the NITI's mandate and the special mandate is truly to bring sectors and players together, and we will be very delighted to play that role. And we already are doing it. We are happy to do much more of that. I need to take a couple of minutes for making two important points. Firstly, having gone through the exhibition to a significant extent, This is more addressed to the startups and innovators and so on. A major gap appears to be validation or evaluation. Let me give, stall after stall, you find that there is an innovation, but it is still to be fully validated. Dr. Bahl has highlighted the pathways to extend help to you. And we have heard from other colleagues how we can fund it and support you. What I wish to tell the community of innovators is that please, when you decide this in your life to take this journey of taking innovation from ideation to the scale-up scale, to the scale-up in the real life situation, validation is extremely important. It must be planned properly. Validation means, let me take an example, that there is a tool which says it detects TB, diagnostic or X-ray or AI tool, whatever it may be. Imagine what it is trying to do. Typically, it is a screening tool. Typically, the ones that are on the display, and most of us are in that space. I need a tool which will not miss practically anybody with TB. In scientific parlance, we would call it very high sensitivity. The price that you pay for missing a patient, missing a person with TB is huge, because this tool has said, you are okay, I go home, but then I end up with brain TBs, or child ends up with brain TB in 4 weeks' time. So please understand that a screening tool has to be of a very high sensitivity. It can afford to overdiagnose because a confirmatory tool will take care of that. This fundamental principle must be understood. So to say it works very well, 80% accuracy, please, you need to be in dialogue with people, and we'll help you there as to what the expectation of a tool in terms of its accuracy is, whether it is AI tool, whether it is sputum, whether it is urine, and that is hard work. It means truly a great comparison for even AI tools in particular. Keep this in mind, because we overestimate the potential of AI, because the potential of AI is immense, but we are not yet there. Today, in AI tool, whoever is inventing the AI tool with data has to convince the NI, the natural intelligence, that it makes sense. Someday this question will not be asked, because then AI will be smarter than NI. But today it is not that day. Not that day. Please keep this in mind. I'll give you an example, because it must be stated here. There are a lot of innovators here. Please, there are people, there are agencies, we say we can diagnose on X-ray all conditions. How can you? X-ray chest is today used to pick up, let's say, 5,000 chest disorders, 300 conditions that are pertaining to other structures, bone, heart, diaphragm, pleura, fluid. It cannot diagnose everything. So, you start with a notion as if it will find this. Someday this will happen. But today, there are those who are smart, and some of them are here, will say, look, my tool diagnoses TB, silicosis, pneumonia, and I can show you that it has high accuracy. That's how it should proceed. One thing at a time. Please don't claim that you have a patient-assisted tool which will help me have a conversation with my patient. It's giving me prompts. It will help me make a diagnosis. Excuse me, which diagnosis? Child, adult, cancer, cough, TB, silicosis, lymphatic, what? So we are overestimating. Please don't fall in this trap. We are there to help you. NITI would help you in this area in particular, because we have a frontier technology hub. You may go astray, devoting your time, precious years of your life and funding, and then find a frustration, because we will ask you tough questions on that day. What is this level of validation before it can be approved by HTA, through HTA, or through the regulator, and so on? Related issue along with this is that please, when you create these technologies, any of these technologies, TB and beyond, please co-create this not just as engineers, but also those who will actually be involved in this. Say doctors, say public health people, say microbiologists, because they would be the ones who will tell you this part. And therefore, so co-creation, the teams must be the clinical side or the public health side and in the engineering side is fundamentally important. Otherwise, time will be wasted, that Indian talent would be wasted. So I urge you that keep this in mind. Number two, please plan from the beginning. Validation, and Dr. Bahl someday will do a class with you to say that when you do validation in terms of diagnostic test, assessment, there are issues of sample sizes, numbers, because otherwise the uncertainty is huge that your test, you're saying 85% sensitive. But what is the lower bound? 33%. Sorry, that's not acceptable. Upper bound maybe 99%. We don't know where we are. So those scientific tools, that scientific knowledge must be part of to be pervading in the ecosystem of innovation for TB and beyond. Only then would we reach the point where your talent should take us in terms of solutions for TB and beyond. And last but not the least, please, all of you keep in mind that there are important other spin-offs. I used the word earlier from what you are doing. For example, a very nice colleague upstairs showed me that they are creating a tool for monitoring compliance with rifampicin, let's say. And they're looking at effect on liver, and they are using a calorimetric test offering to say whether the enzymes, AST, ALT are high or not beyond a certain rate. Now that tool is immediately usable in primary care setting to detect early detection of chronic liver disease. Please think about that, because technology that you're creating for TB has an offshoot and a possibility other than just TB. And keep that in mind. There'll be dividends there. There'll be, again, we can do leapfrogging to be working in those areas which are also equally important. So what you're doing is highly valuable. Co-create these technologies, involve those other people who are going to use it, and please work very hard along the entire path using the scientific principles, and look at the offshoots where the use of your technology may open doors for something as formidable as TB. Thank you. And we are there to help you in each one of these areas, including NITI.
Thank you, sir. And I would now like to thank each of the panelists for sharing your very valuable insights and giving so much insights to the innovators present in this room. I would now hand it over to the organizers to take this further. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Ma'am, can I request you to hand over a token of appreciation to all the panelists? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the panelists, and thank you, Dr. Nivedita, for the session. We'll move on to the next